Today, let's explore together how to approach the challenging topic of breaking free from the need for others' approval. Many people find themselves constantly seeking validation from friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers on social media. This deep need for external approval can feel overwhelming and exhausting, leaving you feeling empty even when you receive the validation you're seeking. If you've ever felt like your self-worth depends entirely on what others think of you, you're not alone, and today we'll examine some research-backed approaches that might help you develop a stronger sense of internal validation. Let's begin by understanding what current research tells us about approval-seeking behavior and its impact on our brains and mental health. Latest research from Mount Sinai, published in Nature Human Behavior in February 2024, reveals fascinating insights into how our brains respond to social interactions. This groundbreaking first-in-human study found that dopamine levels are overall higher when people interact with another human as opposed to a computer. More importantly, the research showed that dopamine closely follows and reacts to whether the current offer is better or worse than the previous one. This suggests that our brains are literally hardwired to seek social validation through neurochemical reward systems, making approval-seeking behavior a natural but potentially problematic human tendency. A comprehensive 2024 meta-analysis in Psychological Bulletin by K. Meyer and colleagues, titled Digital Media and Mental Health Outcomes, reviewed 80 studies and found a moderate correlation with an effect size of 0.4 between heavy social media use and increased anxiety and depression symptoms. The study specifically linked validation-seeking behaviors online to deteriorating mental health outcomes across different age groups. This research suggests that while seeking approval is natural, excessive dependency on external validation, particularly through digital platforms, may contribute to mental health challenges. Stanford researchers in 2024 demonstrated that dopamine and serotonin work in opposition to shape learning behavior. Dopamine encourages reward-seeking behavior by signaling when things are better than expected, creating what researchers call a go signal, while serotonin puts the brakes on this process, creating a stop or wait signal. This research helps explain why validation becomes addictive. Our dopamine system drives us to seek more approval, while our serotonin system may not always provide adequate balance to help us evaluate whether this seeking behavior is healthy or sustainable. Research published in the International Journal of Molecular Sciences in 2024 describes dopamine as the brain's teaching signal, occurring whenever something new or salient happens. The study found that dopamine neurons encode motivational value, supporting brain networks for seeking, evaluation, and value learning. This explains why validation becomes so compelling. Each like, comment, or positive response literally teaches our brain to seek more of the same experience. However, it's important to understand that this research also reveals hopeful possibilities. Neuroimaging studies show that the brain circuits involved in validation seeking can be modified through conscious practice and behavioral changes. The concept of neuroplasticity suggests that we can potentially rewire these patterns with consistent effort over time. Now let's explore some practical methods that research suggests might help reduce dependency on external validation. These approaches are based on scientific evidence, though it's important to remember that everyone's experience is different, and what works for one person might not work for another. The first method is called the neurochemical rebalancing protocol. This involves practicing what researchers call a 30-second pause before posting anything online or seeking approval from others. During this pause, you take 30 seconds to breathe deeply and ask yourself whether you're seeking internal or external validation. This method is thought to be effective because it interrupts the dopamine anticipation cycle before it reinforces the approval-seeking behavior. The timing is important. You practice this every time you feel the urge to seek validation, whether that's before posting on social media, before asking someone what they think of your outfit, or before seeking reassurance about a decision you've made. Research on habit interruption suggests that this kind of conscious pause can help create space between impulse and action, potentially allowing for more intentional choices. The second approach is an internal validation building system. This involves creating what researchers call self-approval journals with specific evidence-based prompts. The practice involves writing down 3 personal accomplishments daily that required no external recognition. The frequency matters. Doing this daily appears to be more effective than occasional practice. The specific procedure focuses on effort and process rather than outcomes or others' reactions. For example, instead of writing "I got promoted," which relies on external recognition, you might write "I consistently prepared thoughtful presentations this month," regardless of how others responded. Research suggests this approach works because it helps rewire neural pathways toward intrinsic motivation, with some studies indicating changes can occur within 21 days of consistent practice. The third method is implementing what researchers call validation-free zones during specific hours of the day. This involves removing all social media apps during morning hours, specifically from 7 to 11 a.m., when research suggests dopamine sensitivity is highest. The science-backed approach involves replacing checking behaviors with physical movement, which can naturally boost dopamine without relying on external validation. Many people find this challenging because it directly confronts the habitual nature of approval-seeking behavior. To prevent the common failure of gradually returning to old patterns, researchers suggest setting your phone to airplane mode during these detox hours rather than relying on willpower alone. The fourth approach is called opinion independence training. This involves stating your genuine opinion on 3 topics daily without seeking agreement from others. The method starts with low-stakes topics like food preferences before moving to more values-based opinions. Research on self-efficacy suggests this approach works because it gradually strengthens what scientists call self-trust pathways in the brain. Neuroplasticity research indicates this strengthening can occur within 4 to 6 weeks of consistent practice. The key is to start small, perhaps expressing a preference for a restaurant or movie without immediately asking others if they agree with your choice. The fifth method involves establishing what researchers call approval audits through weekly check-ins. During these check-ins, you rate your decisions on a 1 to 10 scale based on whether they were internally or externally motivated. The specific strategy involves celebrating internally motivated choices to reinforce new neural patterns. This works because positive reinforcement of internally driven decisions can help strengthen the neural pathways associated with self-validation. A simple first step might involve choosing one daily decision based solely on your preferences while consciously ignoring others' potential reactions. It's important to understand why these methods might be effective from a neuroscientific perspective. When we repeatedly seek external validation, we're essentially training our brains to look outside ourselves for information about our worth and value. Over time, this can weaken our ability to self-evaluate and make decisions based on our own values and preferences. The methods described above are designed to gradually strengthen the neural pathways associated with internal validation while reducing dependency on external approval. However, it's crucial to note that changing these patterns takes time and patience. Research suggests that significant neural pathway changes typically require weeks or months of consistent practice, not days. It's also important to be gentle with yourself during this process, as approval-seeking behavior often develops as a protective strategy, particularly for people who experienced early life circumstances where external approval was necessary for safety or connection. Let me summarize what we discussed today into key points that might help you remember these concepts. First, dopamine addiction cycles can trap you in approval-seeking patterns, which means understanding your brain's natural reward system is the first step toward change. Second, social media and constant connectivity may rewire your brain to crave external validation more intensely than previous generations experienced. Third, internal validation builds stronger neural pathways than external likes or approval, though it requires consistent practice to develop. Fourth, the 30-second pause technique can break dopamine anticipation addiction cycles by creating space between impulse and action. Fifth, self-worth comes from recognizing your effort and process, not from outcome recognition or others' responses. Sixth, opinion independence training can strengthen confidence and self-trust over a period of weeks through gradual practice. Remember that breaking free from excessive need for approval is not about becoming completely independent or never caring about others' opinions. Healthy relationships involve some degree of mutual influence and consideration. The goal is developing a balanced approach where your sense of self-worth doesn't depend entirely on external validation, allowing you to make decisions that align with your values even when others might not approve. This process takes time, and it's completely normal to have setbacks along the way. Many people find that progress isn't linear. Some days feel easier than others. The research suggests that consistent practice over time is more important than perfect implementation, so please be patient and compassionate with yourself as you explore these approaches. The science shows us that change is possible, and your neural pathways can be transformed through conscious effort and practice. While the need for some external validation is natural and healthy, developing a stronger foundation of internal validation might help you feel more confident, authentic, and emotionally stable over time. If today's discussion provided any support or useful information, please hit the like button to help others find this content. If you'd like to continue learning about mental health and well-being together, please subscribe to join our community. Thank you for taking the time to explore these important topics with me today. May your hearts feel a little lighter, and remember that your worth comes from within. Thank you for listening until the end today.